The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's program, HIPAA Omnibus Compliance, How to Be Ready for an OCR Audit. My name is Bob Croce, and I'm the CEO of Business Healthcare Technology Connect, and we're very happy to bring you this program with our partner, Aegify. For those not familiar with BHT Connect, we're a membership organization that provides practical information, education, and networking for professionals in healthcare, life sciences, and technology. After the program, we'll be sending you information on how you can stay informed by signing up for our free membership service. For those of you who would like to share this webinar with colleagues, we'll also be providing a recording that will be available by tomorrow. We'll send you an email on information on how you download that recording. If you have a question during the program, please use the comments function on your GoToWebinar dashboard to send it to us, and we'll try to get as many of those questions answered near the end of the program. With that, I would like to turn the program over to our featured speaker, Anupam Sahai. Anupam?
Thank you, Bob. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anupam Sahai, and I am the co-founder and president of Aegify. Aegify is a comprehensive solution that provides HIPAA compliance, risk, and security assurance. My background is in the areas of healthcare IT, cloud computing, security, and compliance, and I've been in this space for 25 plus years now. So from an agenda perspective that we will cover today, we will talk about HIPAA Omnibus and the changes that have been brought about since September 2013 when HIPAA Omnibus came into effect. We will talk about the changes and the implications for medical providers, business associates, and subcontractors, and then we'll talk about what are the best practices for achieving and assuring HIPAA compliance, certification, and meaningful use. And then we'll talk about what to and how to prepare for OCR audits, and then talk about how to continuously monitor the HIPAA compliance status once you've achieved certification. And at the end, we'll talk about Aegify, which is an automated tool for assessing, maintaining, and monitoring your HIPAA compliance status and certification status. So, and at the end, we'll have Q&A. So as Bob said, if you have any questions, please type them in the question section of the GoToWebinar. Before we begin, I want to put out some disclaimer talking about the information that we present is not to be construed as legal advice. And while we made attempt to ensure that all the information is up to date and current, these things are changing quite rapidly, and so this should not be construed as legal advice. So let's jump right into it. What is the impact of HIPAA Omnibus on covered entities, business associates, and vendors? In short, the impact is huge. It has very wide implications. First big change that came about in HIPAA Omnibus is that now covered entities and business associates and their vendors and subcontractors have a shared responsibility and liability to become compliant, to become HIPAA certified. So it's no longer sufficient that covered entities can keep an arm's length distance from their business associates where they're sharing the data with the BAs, and they cannot feign ignorance or not take responsibility in case a BA gets breached. It's a shared responsibility. So CEs have to be proactive in ensuring all the business associates and the subcontractors are indeed taking steps towards compliant and are certified. Enforcement of the HIPAA compliance status by federal agencies and state auditor generals, which are now responsible, and they collaborate with the federal entities to ensure that these audits are done to ensure compliance. The fines have gone up. Earlier, the fines were a maximum of $50,000 per year. Now it's $1.5 million per incident with no upper limit. So it can easily stack up. And there's potential criminal prosecution for what is called willful neglect, where you are abandoning your responsibility to ensure HIPAA certification, or if you're misrepresenting facts, that's considered to be a potentially criminally prosecutable liability. And there are a number of other changes that allows HHS and OCR to keep the fines that are imposed, and there are new data breach notification requirements. So if a business associate or a vendor or a covered entity gets breached, there are requirements now put in place that the government needs to be notified within a certain period of time if the breach involves more than 500 records. So the recent breaches that happened, Anthem Blue Cross, Primera, all have to report to HHS, and they show up in the HHS quote-unquote wall of shame, which has a listing of all the covered entities and business associates that got breached. And finally, the need to do security risk analysis was re-emphasized. And as we talk further, for meaningful use attestation, doing security risk analysis is important, but it's really at the core of any security program, and that's been reinforced and re-emphasized by the HIPAA Omnibus changes that happen. Now, I want to spend a minute or so talking about the scope of this, the impact and the scope of some of these law changes that happened. So business associate, the definition is anybody in the healthcare space or non-healthcare space, anybody who handles PHI information, patient health information or personal health information, is considered to be a BA. So if a covered entity has a lawyer, an internet service provider, if they have a garbage disposal agency, accountants, any and everybody, all of these folks are considered to be a BA if they're handling PHI information. And it's required by law now that not only the BAs have to be HIPAA compliant and certified, but the covered entities have to ensure that all of these BAs are indeed so. And if not, they should take proactive steps to ensure that they're moving towards in that direction, because both the covered entity and BA can get fined and be held liable otherwise. So why should we bother about what's going on? And while the law is in place, the government has taken a number of steps to ensure that these are in fact being enforced. And not only that, there are a lot of breaches that are happening in the, I see some background noise here. There are lots of breaches that are happening. If you look at the statistics from 2014, about 40% of the cyber attacks and breaches that happened was on healthcare entities. So healthcare entities are under attack, and they are a big target of all the breaches that are happening. And this trend has been going on and increasing by the year. HIPAA compliance is the law, as I talked about, and this is also required to get the meaningful use attestation dollars. So the government has put together an incentive plan to ensure that businesses are complying with HIPAA, and if they do so, if they use the electronic medical records in a certain way to ensure portability of medical records, and they are HIPAA compliant and certified, they are eligible to get money from the government, which can range from $40,000 to $65,000 per physician. So this requires HIPAA security risk analysis, and that drives the need for being HIPAA compliant and certified. So if you have attested for meaningful use dollars and have not done security risk analysis, that's a misrepresentation and a willful neglect potentially if you've sought the dollars without actually being certified. And finally, HHS and OCR, the Office of Civil Rights, which is the enforcement agency of Health and Human Services, is also planning to conduct random audits. Just like IRS, they plan to select random 5% of the medical organizations to do an audit. And this includes both covered entities and business associates. So this is, the enforcement is pretty aggressive, and this is already starting. So given that background, what should healthcare organizations do? And if you look at HIPAA compliance, it's really about a security program, developing a security program around protecting PHI. And HIPAA as a compliance requirement is really a security program around protecting personal health information and personal information. So if you take a step back and look at what is security and what needs to be done to be effective, is the answer to the question is the same. So when we're talking about security, what we are really going after is we're asking three questions, and these are critical questions. One is, what are the critical assets in the organization that you're trying to protect? And in the case of healthcare organization, the answer could be PHI information. I have, as a covered entity, covered entities would get patient information, customer information that needs to be secured. The second thing is, what are the relevant threats? And the third question is, does the organization have the ability to detect and respond before the data is compromised? And one of the key studies and results from the studies that have happened is that while the cyber attackers are very organized, and it takes them literally minutes and seconds to break in and steal the data, it literally takes weeks and months for the companies that have been breached to detect that they were actually breached, and by that time the data is already gone. Not to mention the brand damage and the liability that comes with it. So these three questions are at the heart of any security program, and an associated question to ask is, if these critical assets get compromised, what is the impact on me as an organization? If they are the crown jewels of the company, if they're the intellectual property or the PHI information, the impact could be huge. And then what is the likelihood of such a compromise happening? So all of these questions, these five aspects of the same question, is really around understanding and determining what are the critical assets, how likely is it that these assets might get compromised by threats and attackers. So if we extend that further, I want to propose a framework that's required for any mature security program, including for HIPAA assurance. And by the way, this is also recommended by NIST cybersecurity framework, that it has a much more elaborate sort of information, but what you see here is a condensed version of that. So if you look at physical security or your home security, there are aspects of this home security that are required to protect intruders from getting in. And if the intruders get in, there's surveillance mechanisms, monitoring mechanisms that will detect movement, or there might be heat alarms that detect intruders from coming in. And if intruders do come in, there's a need to have a time response to ensure that these intruders are flagged and action is taken before they cause damage. And the time response could be in the form of calling the police, or maybe there's a dog or there's a gun. So all of these are part of an effective security mechanism, and they fall in the category of protection, detection, and response technologies. So any mature security program in the case of a house needs to have aspects of protect, detect, and respond. And when you put your business on the internet, guess what? There are new set of threats that are coming in. So intruders are not only getting in by breaking in physically your office premises, but they're coming in through the internet. And so there needs to be a set of technical safeguards that fall in these categories of protect, detect, and respond that comprise a mature program. And to tie it all together, there needs to be a set of administrative policies that is able to drive and provide leadership in the organization to ensure that all of these requirements are indeed being met and followed. So the key message that I want you to take away from this framework is that any mature framework needs to have a combination of protect, detect, and respond technologies, because no security mechanism, and I'm going to say that with a lot of clarity and responsibility, is that no security mechanism is foolproof. So there needs to be a combination of these protect, detect, and respond mechanism that comprise a mature program, and there needs to be physical safeguards, there needs to be technical safeguards, and administrative policies and safeguards that tie it all together. So that's really what a mature security program in any organization should have. And so diving a little bit deeper, what are the critical assets? If you're a healthcare organization, you could rest still and say that all the PHI information is critical to me and that's the only critical asset. But there could be other critical information. There could be certainly intellectual property that as an organization that you want to protect. There could be operational continuity. If you're in an earthquake-prone zone, or if attackers break in and breach into your servers and causes the website to go down, that's a problem, right? So all of the critical assets in the organization, whether it relates to people, process, and critical data, are important critical assets that need to be protected. And of course, not to forget the brand, because if a breach happens, like it happened in Target or Anthem Blue Cross, customers might feel reluctant to share the information with you, and that causes huge brand damage, not to mention liability that these patients or other customers might sue you for losing their privacy. So the value of the critical asset can be tangible, it can be goodwill, it can amount to a combination of things that I talked about. And the related question here is what's the impact of this critical asset being compromised and the likelihood of such a thing happening. So security risk analysis, while it's required from a HIPAA certification perspective, is important in general. And this is because as an organization, you're trying to map out your exposure, your risk exposure with respect to all the critical assets that might be under threat and could potentially get compromised. And if that happens, the impact could be huge. So you're trying to evaluate the likelihood and the risk exposure thereby of such an event from happening. And so you want to be able to prevent all the high-risk events that are potentially going to cause a huge impact. And otherwise, you might be liable to get breached, which means insider. It could be a malicious insider, or it could be an external attacker could cause a cyber attack or steal data, and thereby the losses could be huge. It's been shown that average cost of a breach is about $5.5 million. This is the cost of repairing a breach, and that's a big number. So the numbers that are above this and lower than this, the average cost per record for a reparation of a breach is about $165. So if you look at the Anthem Blue Cross breach, where about 80 million records were breached, you can get to a pretty huge number if you take that average cost per record number. So be advised that this is it has huge cost implications, it has huge brand implications, and all of those add together. And of course, these are required by compliance regulations, as I mentioned, not only HIPAA, but PCI, FISMA, and other regulations. Any mature security program will require you to do security risk analysis. So let's dive right into it. What does it mean from a HIPAA perspective to be certified? And what are the requirements coming from HIPAA that businesses should be aware of and worried of? So there are a number of things that businesses are required to do to become HIPAA certified. One is that they need to ensure that the entire HIPAA Omnibus assessment has been done to understand where do they stand today with respect to the compliance requirements. And this HIPAA requirement falls in the category of administrative, technical, and physical safeguards that I talked about earlier. HIPAA has requirements in each category. So ensuring that all of the aspects of HIPAA have been complied to and that protect, detect, and respond mechanisms have been put in place is important. There's also a need to security scan PHI assets. And what this is doing is that you are vulnerability assessing the vulnerabilities of all the assets that are handling PHI information. And recently there was a huge fine imposed because certain vulnerabilities that were not fixed or remediated in time got compromised, and HHS had to put a huge fine on it. In fact, the recent Primera breach happened because certain vulnerabilities that were detected and found were not fixed in time, and they were compromised. So doing a vulnerability scanning to ensure that all your assets, IT assets, are patched, are up to date, and don't have malware or other vulnerabilities that can be compromised. The next requirement is the BA and vendor management. As I mentioned earlier, covered entities now have a shared responsibility and liability to ensure any downstream BAs and vendors are compliant. Similarly, the business associate that's working with multiple covered entities, they have a responsibility and liability too to ensure that they themselves are compliant, and any downstream vendors and subcontractors that BAs work with are also HIPAA certified. So the liability chain extends from CE to the BA to the vendor, and there's a shared responsibility in this liability chain. And finally, on top of this, risk analysis is a required and a must, because you are essentially figuring out the efficacy of all the effectiveness, all the security program components that make it mature. And risk analysis will tell you how mature as a program you are to combat and deal with cyber attacks. And as I said, this is also required for meaningful use attestation, especially the risk analysis, which is really riding on top of the other three bullets on top. So let's dive right into it. I won't spend too much time, but from a security risk analysis perspective, what you're doing are following these 6 steps, and you're identifying your critical assets, identifying the potential threats and vulnerabilities, and determining their likelihood and impact in case these assets get breached. And the security controls that are in place is really your defense mechanism. So if you have security controls that deal with protect, detect, and respond, you want to evaluate the maturity, and that results in a risk score that tells you how effective or how mature a security program you have in place. And if not, if the risk score will tell you what are the gaps, and you can then implement the recommendation of controls that need to be put in place. Controls here, by the way, refers to whether it's an administrative mechanism or a technical or a physical safeguard mechanism that needs to be put in place to ensure that all the security program is moving in a direction of maturity. So what is that OCR is looking for? Given we talked about the HIPAA program, the requirements, what does it mean to have a mature security program, and why is it important to do risk analysis and the HIPAA certification requirements for covered entities and BAs. So having talked about that, let's now talk about what is the OCR looking for. If they come knocking on the door, what is the audit program, what is the audit protocol that OCR is looking for, that businesses need to be aware of. So OCR is essentially wants to make sure that the basic tenets of HIPAA are in place. So the basic tenets are privacy requirements, which have a number of new requirements as per HIPAA Omnibus, that there are policies, procedures, administrative safeguards that need to be put in place. They will also ensure that security rule requirements are met, and security rule here includes the combination of administrative, physical, and technical safeguards, as I said earlier, and that they have breach notification, rule implementation, so that if a breach happens, there's a process in place to ensure that reporting happens correctly and in a timely fashion. And finally, risk analysis. At the end of the day, security risk analysis is telling and communicating the maturity of the program. And so doing a security risk analysis is not only required from a meaningful use attestation perspective, but it's also required as part of HIPAA Omnibus. So there have been a number of OCR fines imposed because a number of organizations, they claimed the meaningful use attestation dollars and did not do security risk analysis. And what that means is that they were misrepresenting information. And in fact, there was a recent incident where a CIO was criminally prosecuted and went to jail. So this is a serious offense where you are falsely providing evidence and data to support and say things that are not actually in place. And so all of these are required from an audit protocol perspective that OCR is looking for. They're looking for the key elements of the HIPAA Omnibus program to be in place, and that's really the key message here. So what should be done to prepare to be HIPAA compliant, to be HIPAA certified, and not just be HIPAA certified in a point in time, but be continuously HIPAA certified? Because it's security and compliance is a journey, and while you might be compliant in a point in time, new threats and vulnerabilities are being discovered on a weekly basis. So while you might be compliant today, next week you could be out of compliance. So it's not only important that you are compliant today, but you maintain your compliance status in an ongoing fashion. So if the OCR comes knocking 3 months down the road, you can show your proof of compliance. So what are the steps needed to prepare and be HIPAA certified and thereby be ready for an OCR audit? So first thing is to understand the HIPAA Omnibus requirements, which we talked about. There are a number of new implications from HIPAA Omnibus that covered entities and business associates need to be aware of. Certainly there needs to be a security and compliance program in place which safeguards your critical assets. If you're a healthcare organization, then your critical assets could be PHI information, customer health information, and that's fine. But if there are more critical information that you need to protect, you need to identify and put a program to wrap around and protect them. You need to start with a HIPAA self-assessment, and that will give you a gap report which tells you where do you stand today vis-a-vis the HIPAA requirements. And you need to implement vulnerability management. That's a requirement from a HIPAA certification, and perform security risk analysis. And then you need to make sure that you're proactively ensuring that business associates are HIPAA certified. Earlier, if you had a business associate agreement with all your BAs and vendors, that would have been sufficient. But no, not anymore. You have to be proactive to ensure that all your BAs are indeed certified, HIPAA certified. If not, take steps to proactively go after them and work in that direction. So CEs have a joint responsibility to ensure that all BAs are indeed compliant. And based on this analysis, you would implement a set of safeguards and controls, including the breach notification plan, and be ready with a report on compliance, which shows and provides a proof of your compliance status. And it should provide a complete audit trail of all the things that you've done, policies, procedures, administrative, technical, and physical safeguards that you put in place. And these are controls that need to be put in place as part of a mature security and compliance program. Mature does not mean resource intensive. It means that all the components that make up an efficient security program needs to be put in place. And then there's a need to continuously monitor all these things that have been done. And as a part of the security and compliance program, there is a need to assign roles and responsibilities, which is very, very key. So this is all possible if there is a leadership in the organization that is driving and understands the implications and is driving the change to ensure that these physical and technical safeguards are implemented. So leadership and administrative governance is a key aspect of all of this to ensure that businesses have internalized the requirements from HIPAA to ensure that the privacy and security of PHI information is to be protected. And this needs to be repeated to ensure that all the information is being monitored and taken care of. So the need for continuous monitoring, why is it required? Because things change. And as I said earlier, there are new vulnerabilities that are being discovered every week. And people might leave the organization, they might join organizations. So it's important to stay on top of that through continuous monitoring. And not only that, there's a need to repeat some of the stuff which are part of an effective program. So there are elements that need to be repeated to maintain your security risk and compliance posture. So you need to make sure that you continuously monitor your status, update your policies, procedures, conduct awareness training for your employees, and especially for new employees that are coming in, and document all of this so that you have a complete awareness inside the organization, and then do risk analysis, because that's key to driving and understanding where do you stand as an organization, and the results are continuously monitored and updated. So that's the background from a requirement perspective, from a OCR audit protocol requirement perspective, and then also to prepare. What should organizations do to prepare and be ready for an OCR audit if that happens? So this list might seem pretty onerous. There are 9 steps, and if you try to do this manually, you're looking at lots of time potentially and resources, and then even then you're not sure whether you're doing the right thing in terms of scoping, and then the continuous monitoring part of it. You might hire an auditor who comes in and evaluates and makes you compliant, but 2 weeks down the road, you might be out of compliance again. So there is a need to automate all of this. And when we built Aegify, the purpose was to provide a solution that addresses not only just HIPAA requirements, but for any security program, any mature security program that needs continuous monitoring and provides complete assurance and peace of mind is really what Aegify solution is all about. So Aegify is a subscription solution. It's a SaaS solution that provides a complete visibility and view into all of the aspects that are required to implement a mature security program framework. And as I said earlier, maturity of the program does not imply it's resource intensive. It only means that it has all the important elements that make it complete and comprehensive. So the solution provides a complete view into threats, vulnerabilities, assessments, audits, security scans, and risk assessments. And certainly the solution has support for HIPAA high-tech, but if there are other regulations that an organization needs, it has built-in support for 800 plus regulations or any custom regulation that you might be implementing as an organization. And there are built-in scanning tools, there are risk frameworks, excuse me. There are risk management frameworks that are built into the tool that allows you to integrate and unify all of these different aspects that otherwise would be done separately or incompletely. So it's one single application that meets all of your HIPAA assurance needs. So whether it is assessments, scanning, generating gap reports, whether you need to get trained or need to train your employees, and then monitoring through alerts and notifications. So you are on top of all the changes that might be happening in the organization, and the application does the heavy lifting. It does the automation for you for ensuring that all of your HIPAA assurance requirements are being met and monitored. And then it comes prepackaged with policies and templates and best practices that you can learn from. So as an organization, if you don't have a HIPAA program in place or don't understand what needs to be done, the tool is a wizard-based approach that will tell you what the requirements are and how to accomplish some of these implementations. And then you can also leverage the templates that are existing in the tool for either adopting them as it is, or you can customize them. So it's a complete turnkey solution. It's a comprehensive turnkey solution that provides you with full control to drive and manage. So if you are a large organization with multiple business units and multiple locations, you're able to have a complete single pane view of all your locations of the entire organization to monitor their HIPAA status and do that in real time. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I want to show you quickly how the automation works, and we call it the continued readiness implementation, which means that we have automated the process of assessing and responding and monitoring your HIPAA status. So the first stage in any security program or HIPAA program would be to do an assessment to understand where do you stand today, what's the gap report, and then once you know the gap report, there's a need to fix it, fix the problems that are found. So that's the remediation step. So once the issues have been fixed, there's a need to continuously monitor any changes that happen, and so there's a need to do this protect, detect, and respond for HIPAA assurance to not only be achieved at a particular point in time, but be repeated and continuously monitored. So the solution, Aegify solution, as I said earlier, has been built from the ground up to automate this whole process of HIPAA assurance. And not only that, it can implement any general purpose cybersecurity hardening automation as well. And at any point in time, both you and all the locations of your business will have access to a single pane dashboard that gives you your HIPAA status, and you can generate reports, and you can understand what the gaps are and how to fix the problems. And from a BA management perspective, if you have, let's say, 50 to 100 BAs, the dashboard will also give you real-time visibility into what the BA status is from a HIPAA certification, whether they are certified, whether they are going through the process. And so using the tool, you are not only able to monitor your internal status, but any business associates that work with you can be monitored as well. So it's a complete implementation that I talked about earlier, which has elements of protect, detect, and respond, and then it has components of administrative, technical, and physical safeguards built in. So HIPAA as a program has some of these frameworks, some of these mechanisms in place that is implementable using our tool. And the key differentiator really is around our ability to look at security holistically. And HIPAA assurance is an important element of what we do. And we look at HIPAA from a risk management and security management perspective. Traditionally, these applications have been fragmented, they've been siloed, and our solution uses an expert systems-based approach to automate the entire process of HIPAA assurance and provides you with a single unified action plan. So you don't get 3 different reports for security, for compliance, and risk. It's really a single pane view and a single report that gives you all the information. And this is easy to deploy. It can be deployed remotely. You don't have to have any presence on the location that you're trying to monitor, and you can pay as you grow. So you can start with one location and then add up as you go along. So I'll skip this slide here and suffice it to say that we have automated the whole process of risk management, which traditionally is very, very resource intensive. It takes a lot of time, and from a solution perspective, we spent a lot of time to provide you with automation and data that allows you to finish and do your risk assessment and take care of your continuous monitoring needs using the tool. So you set up a schedule for repetition of scanning or assessments, and the tool will do it for you and give you a result in real time to tell you what's happening. I want to show you a quick screenshot of some screenshots of how the tool looks like. So this is the dashboard that gives you your overall status. So it's telling you that your HIPAA compliance status is risky, very high. Security risk is critical. So it has scanned the network, and it will automatically discover the different assets that were found on the network, how many vulnerabilities were found in these assets that can be a problem, and then how many HIPAA controls are failing. So all of this is done automatically without you having to worry about doing this manually, which can be very time consuming. And by the way, if you want to play around with the solution, I would encourage you to go to aegify.com/community, where you can download a free community edition to understand how the tool works. This is what the dashboard looks like. This is, as I said, a single pane of glass that allows you to monitor all of your locations and business associates. So this is the CIO, CISO dashboard that can be used to monitor your overall status. And you can keep drilling down from here to get very specific operational information to fix the problems that are found. The assessment is, again, very simple. We've converted the HIPAA legalese into simple yes or no questions that can be answered. You can upload evidence and their policies and a built-in document repository that allows you to understand what needs to be done and how to go about achieving a yes answer for these questions. So as you can see here, that there is the built-in policies and procedures that are inline that you can click on, and you're able to get access to a policy that tells you what needs to be done to understand what does individually identifiable health information means. So all of these policy documents are built into the tool. In fact, we have about 25 policies for HIPAA, and there's also a complete policy management portal that allows you to either use the existing built-in templates that are provided, or you can import your own policies or mix and match them, and you're able to manage them through the policy management portal. You can have an audit trail, and they're all linked to the different HIPAA requirements and regulations. Here is an example of a policy document. So we have a complete BA agreement that's in place, and this is, again, it meets the HHS audit protocol requirements. So the BA agreement, as I said, is the first step in ensuring that business associates are taking steps towards compliance, HIPAA compliance and certification. So this BA agreement has very detailed information about the liability and the responsibility that a BA must undertake. And there is a knowledge base built into the tool that educates and talks about the best practices that businesses need to follow to meet the HIPAA requirements, and that's part of the knowledge base that we provide. So this is the best practice that organizations implement to ensure that they're compliant. And then the tool will also scan the network, discover the top vulnerabilities. It'll tell you how to fix the problems that are found, and we tell you not only what the problems are, but how to fix the problems. So that's a unique differentiator in terms of what our solution does. And there are reports that you can generate with the click of a button. You're able to generate reports for showing meaningful use, for showing attestation of compliance, so that you're able to document what you've done with a complete audit trail. And this is all generatable from a single from the dashboard. It will tell you what are the missing gaps that were found, what are the non-compliant controls, and then for all the non-compliant controls, it will tell you how to fix the problem, what's the suggested remediation. So it's, as I said, it's a complete comprehensive solution for HIPAA assurance and certification, and you can leverage the tool for not only understanding where you stand today from a HIPAA compliance perspective, but also you can leverage it to cybersecurity harden your organization. And not only this is required by law from a HIPAA compliance perspective, but as an organization, you want to be cognizant and taking steps towards ensuring that cyber attackers are not targeting your organization, and if they do, that you're not a sitting duck from a target perspective. So what I want you to take away from this discussion today is that be aware that cyber attacks are rising. Businesses have lost roughly about $1 trillion worth of effective worth as a result of cyber attacks, and this continues to rise. In fact, between 2013 and 2014 and the year before, the number of cyber attacks have been growing roughly about 100% year over year. So that's the attacks are doubling every year, and not only that, the nature of attacks are morphing from small groups to much bigger organized crime groups and nations, for example. So this is a real problem that you need to be worried about. And then compliance, right? Compliance, if you want to be HIPAA compliant, HIPAA certified, you want to make sure that if OCR comes knocking to do an audit, that you are ready, prepared, and the solutions that are out there are either manual, where they look at some of these aspects in a manual fashion. It's a one-time audit, and they're ineffective because the week after the audit is done, you might, if you bring in a consultant and do the audit and become HIPAA compliant, the week after you might be out of compliance. So the solutions that are out there are either manual or they look at pieces of the problem. Aegify looks at it holistically and provides a complete assurance for HIPAA compliance. We look at all the protect, detect, and respond mechanisms that are required for an effective and mature security program to be in place. So if you're interested in looking at a mature tool, at a tool that was designed for HIPAA certification, I would encourage you to look at Aegify and be ready for an OCR audit. And if you want to do risk analysis, you want to be certifying for meaningful use, then you are also able to use that, use Aegify for that. So with that, let me pause here and see whether there are any other questions.
Okay, Anupam, we definitely have been getting some questions, so what I'll do is I'll read them.
Okay.
Our answers have been supplying as the program's been progressing. So the first question comes from John, who asks, does a BA need to be HIPAA certified or simply HIPAA compliant?
Yes, so HIPAA certification here means that they are meeting all the HIPAA requirements. So if you're compliant, then the attestation, the certification or attestation is a natural step in that direction. So yes, so BAs need to be HIPAA certified and HIPAA compliant both.
Okay, so the next question comes from Kaushal, which is kind of a straightforward question related to medical devices. And he asks, does HIPAA apply to connected personal medical devices that push data to the cloud?
Absolutely. So the definition of a PHI critical asset, which is in the purview of the HIPAA program, is any asset, any IP device or any software that is either accessing PHI information, storing PHI information, or is involved in transmitting of PHI information. So if the medical device is handling PHI information in one of these different forms, then yes, they need to be scanned for vulnerabilities. They need to be part of the HIPAA certification program.
Terrific. That's good to know. A question from Brian. How often do these audits and assessment activities need to be completed for a healthcare organization or their BAs, and how long is proof of compliance good for?
So the requirement from HHS is that you need to do the audits and certification at least once a year. But in order to maintain your certification, there's some activities that need to be done more frequently. So for example, security scanning, that needs to be done at least once a month, if not more frequently, because there are new vulnerabilities that are happening and they're coming up and showing up every week almost. So you need to do security scans on a monthly basis, if not weekly. Assessments could be done once a year or once every 6 months, depending on how frequently things change. So if you're a large organization where things are changing very frequently on a weekly basis, do it as frequently as a quarter or 6 months. The idea of doing the assessment is that you're trying to ascertain that if any risk exposure is changing, you are staying on top of it. So that's the key idea that allows you to not only ensure that you're compliant at a particular point in time, but that you're continuously monitoring your status. So you want to make sure that your security status, your risk status, and your HIPAA compliance status is continuously monitored and ensure that you're compliant at any point in time. So there is no one right answer. It depends on the size of the organization and how frequently things are changing.
Terrific. And just a reminder to the audience that we will be providing information and a way to contact Anupam after the program if you have additional questions.
Sure.
We did get a question from Roby related to your tool that you did a demo of during this program. And his question was, what is the size of the organization that the tool is targeted at, and which are some of your largest clients?
Yeah, so the tool has multiple versions or editions of the software that can be used either in very small doctor practices all the way to large multinationals, Fortune 500 kind of a setup with multiple locations. And so these different editions are priced differently. They are functionality-wise differently set up. And if you drop me a note, I can share information about how the features and functionality cross over. And yes, we do have a number of large deployments, large hospitals, county hospitals, tertiary hospitals that are using our tool today.
Terrific. And I'm getting a lot of questions about the program recording. And just to remind the audience, we will be providing a recording and information on how to download that by tomorrow. So I just wanted to answer that because we've gotten that question several times.
Sure.
Another question about the tool from Dan. His question is, will the software identify all of the databases and servers on a network, or do we have to identify them to the software?
No, the tool will identify all devices, whether it's software or hardware devices that have an IP network. So for example, if you have a database running on a particular server machine, it will discover the server machine, it will discover the database, and scan them both, the hardware, software, both for vulnerability. So this is part of the automation that we built in, where we can discover any of the IP assets that are on the network. And we will do about 95, we will look at 95,000 vulnerabilities that are known today. And we'll do about 32,000 checks to ensure that all of these assets are not found to be vulnerable and that they cannot be compromised.
Terrific. There is a question here related to the effectiveness of your tool, and I guess this is going to be a subjective answer from you, and I kind of know how you might answer or might not, but the question is from Laura, and she asked, would Anthem had been hacked had your tool been available to them?
Would they have been hacked? That's a subjective answer. It's like
it really is.
What we are doing is we are preparing organizations and creating a mature security program around it. Mm-hmm. Now, there's still some people-related responsibility and policies and governance that need to be put in place to ensure that they are indeed being followed. So to give you an example, Cisco might sell you a firewall router, but if you're not configuring the router properly, you can get attacked and hacked. So we provide the tools for implementing a mature security program. The efficacy of that can be automated, but really if it's not being followed or implemented properly, then that's really a problem that cannot be automated in a way.
That was a very good answer. Very, very politically astute answer as well. The tool is terrific, but could it have stopped that major Anthem hack or problem? It's kind of a subjective thing, as you mentioned. We're running out of time, and I wanted to just quickly thank everyone participating today and tuning in. We had a very large audience, which was great to see. And I think, from my standpoint, the information was really great, Anupam, so I want to thank you personally as well. Any final comments on your end?
No, I think this is great, and we would love to hear from you if there are additional topics that you would like us to cover. So give us feedback on the current webinar and any future webinars that you would like to see. And we really thank you for your time that you spent with us today.
Thanks again for listening, and again, we'll get you the information on the recording as soon as we can tomorrow. And thank you very much, and we hope to be able to present to you again. Have a good day.
Have a great day.